sharpness geeks and purveyors of static goodness. Welcome to the Knife Freak Show. My name is Jonathan McNees. This is my co-host, Mr. Chase Boatright.
Hello, beautiful people. How are we today?
Can you tell we're a little energized from the show last week?
Yeah, energized and also
Energized, but still tired.
Yeah, post shows like a weird feeling, like you're excited to get back in the shop, but also you feel like you've just done 10 rounds with Muhammad Ali like your brain is dead, your body is dead, but also you're just thinking of new things that you either talked about at the show or just excited to get back to work, and it's a strange thing.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's physically exhausting and somewhat mentally exhausting, but at the same time, kind of mentally recharging too. It's a nice. I'll tell you, one of the good things for us is, and me and Amy talk about it every year. So, like, we get, most of the emails and stuff that we get, we do get, especially like in my DMs and stuff, I get a mix of stuff, good and bad.
Yeah.
But the emails we get, typically, if somebody's reaching out to us, it's because there's some sort of a problem. And I mean, a lot of times it's just something with like a difficulty placing an order on the website or this or that. It's not always an actual like problem with the knife. But and then probably close to half the time when it is a problem with the knife, it's a self-induced customer issue that they've caused with the knife. But anyway, not everybody. So some people are just jerks. Let's just say that. Some people are jerks and they send emails that are very, jerkish emails. But then I think there's also another percentage of people that if you were talking to them in person wouldn't come off as jerks at all, but they just don't communicate well with email, and they're like short or like whatever. And it comes off as, being a jerk when maybe they're not trying to be. And we try to keep that in mind, but still you get inundated with that day after day of, stuff. And some of it's just off the wall stuff. Like, we've talked about before, like people being mad about not getting in on a drop or this or that, whatever, like just all the random stuff that comes along with running a company. Right. But when we go to a show, it's like, not that we wouldn't welcome, criticism or constructive criticism or whatever, but it's overwhelmingly like people are so much nicer in person. Like, nobody comes up to our table being a jerk. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, everybody is super nice and respectful. And like, it just kind of restores your faith in humanity. Cause like answering customer service emails and like nothing to get, you guys, we're fine with getting customer service emails. We do appreciate it if you're at least, a reasonably kind human being when you email, but it wears you down. And then to be honest, there's a lot of emails we get that aren't even actual customers that are complaining about, why don't you make this or why don't you do this way? And they're not customers. They want to tell us how to do what we do or whatever. And it gets very frustrating. And then you go to a show and it's just this overwhelming, just, so many nice people, so many good conversations. And it's like, it's just very refreshing and kind of gives you another boost, and then you hang on through the emails until you get to the next show. And it's just kind of a cycle through the year.
Really is. It's like rejuvenating. Like it kind of restores your faith in humanity a little bit. It's especially after you've put hours and hours into that particular show. It's like to see it pay off. Both monetarily and like people are actually excited and like what you do, and that sort of stuff is
all the feedback, and it gets you, like, you see in person too. I think another thing is the usually, again, we do get some very nice emails. Like we get people just hitting us up just to tell us how much they enjoy stuff or they appreciate stuff or whatever, and which is super awesome to get. But the majority of the time, if you're getting an email, it's because somebody has a problem. And so most of the people that are good and enjoying the stuff are not, they're out there. You're just not hearing from them. And so when you're at a show, then you're actually, it's kind of the exact opposite. You're hearing from the people, and we'll have people occasionally, they'll come by, hey, I've got one that's got this issue or whatever. Can you take a look at it? But they're always super nice. It's not like with the email where people are, again, I think a lot of it's just people not being great at communicating through email and getting their tone and their,
I mean,
they just come across.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly why
So,
emojis were invented, was to kind of, you can say the same thing with or without an emoji, and it like changes the entire inflection of how we read it in our mind. And it's like, it doesn't make sense rationally, but I mean, it does, because, in person we can,
and I do that. Yeah.
definitely change how things are said.
All the inflection and tone, and you get to read their facial expressions and the whole works. Like, it's just a completely different world.
Yeah.
Of course, then you have the people that are, the keyboard commandos or whatever, that just, are 100% going to be more respectful when they're in person than they are sitting behind a keyboard. So it's more like the world I grew up in when I'm at a show, because I'm pre-internet. A good chunk of my life was lived pre-internet, where you didn't deal with deciphering how somebody was trying to get across with an email, or people sitting in their mom's basement typing out some kind of crap and posting it, and with no repercussions. Like, it was a different world. So, but yes, it was always, and man, the knife crowd is, by and large, there's of course there's always a few bad apples, but by and large the knife crowd is such good people and nice people, and like, it's just phenomenal to see, and get a reminder of that every time we do a show.
Yeah, great people all around, and like, just between the other exhibitors there, I always enjoy, getting to know new people and like different parts of the industry and stuff that are my neighbors and stuff like that. And also just, meeting new people that, that are attending the shows, customers, or, whatever else. And like, it's always just super fun. Like, other makers that are just there walking around, coming up and, seeing me, that we've talked online or whatever. And I got to meet Pohan, finally. So, like, stuff like that.
Yeah,
like,
it's good to see
Pohan,
Pohan,
I've talked to him for, I don't know, since I started working with you, and like finally got to meet him this time. So that was cool.
He's a good dude.
But yeah.
So, like,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to throw in we used to. It's kind of cool now for me to see you bringing Ada to the shows, because, like, Hannah wasn't as young as Ada is when she started coming to shows with us, because I wasn't as young as you were when I started doing this, but yeah, she started coming to shows, and when it got to the point where she got a little older, I used to always tell people, like, we were fine with her, like, going out and walking around in the show, as big as that show is. Like, we weren't scared to let her go walk around in the show by herself and stuff, because like there's no way anybody was going to bother her, inside that show. And then even she got a little older, as a teenager and stuff, we'd let her, go back and forth back up to the room, let her sleep in, and then drag in when she woke up and come down to the show or whatever. And we weren't worried about, because we knew there were so many good people around that, just didn't have to worry about it.
Basically,
So that's really cool. Really cool to see.
The only reason I worry about Ada right now is just, like, she's so young that, she's not aware of all the sharp objects in the room, and, go up and pull a tablecloth, and,
Right. Yeah. You got to kind of keep the bubble around her. Yeah.
I'm not.
For sure. So this was your first time in Texas. So what'd you think?
It was.
We've been talking about kind of shows in general, but what'd you think about
it? Was
Texas?
Great. I mean, it was very, very heavy foot traffic, like you were saying, especially Saturday. Saturday really kicked off, like, and like it was wild in there for a little while. But yeah, it was, got to see a lot of familiar faces, but also got to meet a lot of new people that, don't necessarily make the trek. The people that live in, Colorado, people that live in New Mexico, Arizona, it's not, as arduous to get across, the whole United States. But you can spend 8 hours driving in Texas alone easily. So, but yeah, anyway, but no, I thought it was a great show. I mean, we did really well, as far as selling stuff, and, can't complain there, so it was, I'll definitely be back. I think the main thing I'm excited about to go back to Dallas for, though, is, Hurtado's barbecue. I mean, it was a great show, but, we were, me and my daughter were both a little sick she had been a little sick, and then I kind of started being sick on Thursday when we started driving out there. So it was kind of a slog just to get there and to, do all that. But, Hurtado's barbecue made it worth it. So,
cool. Might put that on the list.
Yeah, it was, the best barbecue I've ever had, bar none. Had something called a Texas Twinkie.
Wow.
That was basically a where's the camera? It was a jalapeno, not a little jalapeno. It was a jalapeno that was
Big,
stuffed with brisket and cheese, and then wrapped in bacon.
Holy
And
moly.
yeah.
Wow.
I was talking to Doug from Attention to Detail Mercantile, and he was like, "You had me at brisket, and then you wrapped it in bacon. That's just
Yeah, it's starting to mouth starting to water
yeah,
over here.
yeah." So
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
enjoyed getting to try to sample the food out there, because that's one of the things we enjoy doing when we go on trips. Is we mainly kind of just map out where we're going to eat and figure out what we're going to do the rest of the time. The rest of the vacations are just kind of open. It's we sort of only schedule
Right.
meals. So yeah, that was.
So is it somewhere there close to the show that you ate, or was it like coming in or
No,
leaving
it was somewhere
the
in the somewhere close to our
in the
Airbnb,
general?
which was, we were
Okay.
7 minutes from the convention center, so it was in that
Okay.
little Fort
Right.
Worth area,
Close.
the
Yeah.
little downtown area.
Okay.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I was going to say that we usually end up not venturing very
yeah,
far away from the venue slash hotel at any of the shows, just because of we're usually not every we're either usually eating with somebody, or if we don't have something lined up, somebody to eat, then we're usually just like, screw it, we're staying in the room and doing Uber Eats. Like we're
yeah,
we're toast. Like we're so tired and exhausted and all that.
yeah.
So it's usually one or the other. I mean, we're glad to go eat if we've got somebody lined up to go eat with. If not, we usually end up just being hermits and stay in the room and ordering Uber Eats. So
It's
yeah,
on that like double-edged sword thing. It is kind of nice, especially like at these big shows. I'm not an outgoing type person. I know you more so are, but talking to people all day long, and then finally getting this chance to just kind of be in my own little bubble, which is, I'm
yeah,
breaking stuff.
yeah.
But
So it's
you know,
the classic extrovert versus
yeah,
introvert. You're being a introvert, and Amy's the same way. Like we'll get done, which now she hides it
oh yeah,
very well. Like you would never know that she's
I
an
wouldn't have thought
introvert.
so.
But the reason we both kind of always thought she was an extrovert until we read a definition where it was like, an introvert when they're around people, and then it basically drains
Yep,
their energy. So like they get done being around people and they're just feel
yep,
totally drained. Whereas an extrovert feels energized from it. And so that's the way they are. We'll get back to the room and she's like, just, she needs her bubble, like you're saying. And then I'm just like,
yeah,
just super pumped up and having this crazy energy, and like wanting to talk about everything. And it's like, yeah.
yeah,
So I've learned to try to kind of chill out a little bit, but yeah, it's kind of weird how you see the different. Now I'll be exhausted, like physically exhausted. It's kind of like we said at the beginning. I'll be mentally exhausted, but still energized from talking to people.
yeah.
So it's kind of
And
weird.
Blade Show's the only experience where I kind of get that, where I do get like that sort of a little bit of recharged, but also the
Yeah,
Monday, like when we get home, I don't want to even talk to my wife or daughter. I just I don't want to
right.
see another person
Yeah,
for about 24 hours, just to kind of like get
right,
back in my own little bubble and calm down a little bit,
right.
because otherwise my brain's just going all over
Yep,
the place. So but yeah, Texas was great.
yep. I get that.
Highly recommend it. Next year I'll try to bring, I'll bring something more normal, not my like fleet sort of things that I did. That was
Yeah,
sort of a,
that was a cool thing though. You only get a chance to do anniversary stuff, on certain
yeah,
occasions. So
yeah. I mean, it was a fun project. I definitely enjoyed it, but it, was a little strange to bring to a show for the first time. As a lot of the people seeing
right.
my stuff for the first time, and it's like, oh, it's for both, and I don't know. I
Yeah,
worry that people will be like, oh, does he always
yeah,
do this, or is this, because I didn't get the
right.
chance to,
Yeah,
fully explain to every single person. So,
right,
but
right. Yeah. Nah, it'll it'll be cool. And then next year they'll be like, oh, I liked these last year, but I couldn't quite swing it. I can just buy a single
yeah,
this year, and
so that,
it's it's good. Yeah.
um,
I think the Texas show is my second. Honestly, as far as a show to do, is probably, I don't know. In some ways, I like it more than Atlanta. In some ways, I like that it's only two
yeah,
days.
that
Atlanta
was,
is being 3 days is like Sunday just I don't love it. It drags on at 3 days.
Yeah.
Like I'm ready to be done by the end of the day
Yeah.
Saturday.
I never,
But I do like it.
sorry. I was going to say, I never got that, like, oh, I'm done with Blade Show. Like, I never got that feeling like I do kind of Sunday at
Yeah,
about,
because 2 days
Sunday at about
is
noon. I
about
am
right.
like, okay, and a lot of people do pack up. I do not. I wait till 2
Oh
o'clock.
yeah, no,
Because I'm supposed to be there
right.
until 2 o'clock. I will be there until 2 o'clock. But
Us as well. Now, I may be walking the floor a little bit
yeah,
by that time and rubbing elbows and doing a little stuff. Speaking of something we haven't talked about, um, did you get to do any look in or pick anything up or anything like that
I
at the
bought
show?
one thing. I bought a sheet of micarta, which I think I showed you. It's burlap
Yeah,
and
yeah,
green
really cool
linen.
stuff.
Like, and I was excited. Somebody else, Seven Forge, which are a couple young makers that I know from Iowa, and they showed me that they had got a sheet, and I said, "Where'd you get that? I want some." And so,
Yeah, yeah, I'm anxious to see how that turns out. It looks
yeah,
pretty
I'm
cool.
trying to find what I'm putting it on, but yeah, I'll figure it out.
Right.
But
Yeah.
did you end up getting anything or?
Absolutely zero. I honestly didn't even look at
Yeah,
anything. Like I couldn't even tell you really any. I can't even remember really stopping and looking at I mean I glanced as I was rushing back and forth from the concession stand or the
yeah,
bathroom as I was walking past. But even then, it was more just trying to navigate through people and get back as quick as I
yeah,
could. Like I honestly can't think of a single thing that I looked at and like on anybody's table or anything, which sounds bad. I
yeah.
wanted to, but like it was so busy, and I always feel bad to be away from the table. And even as little as I'm away from the table, it never fails. Like people will, people will like, oh yeah, I came by to try to see you, but you weren't there. And I was like, oh, dude, I was gone like just long enough to go to the bathroom and get back. And
Well,
like,
yeah,
it's just
and
yeah.
that was the
So
one negatives I would say about the show was the bathroom situation wasn't great. But I
yes,
think
I agree with that. That was logistically, that was
I
yeah,
I caught a little bit of a conversation with Alicia outside. She was talking to somebody in charge of the convention center, I believe, and was not
right,
happy about the fact that there were 5,000 men and basically 3 stalls. There was 2 urinals and a stall, but yeah. So
yeah. It was yeah, and there's usually multiple bathrooms or whatever, and they're much bigger. And last year it wasn't. So last year I don't know if we were in a completely different section, like because those big convention centers have like the walls move and
yeah,
stuff, like they can open it up, close it in. But I know the concession stand and bathrooms were on the back wall. There was like a built-in. So like this year they had like just a wall open into another
yeah,
room and like a freestanding like concession area set up, just where they set up like a counter and
yeah,
stuff. But last year there was actual like built-in concession area back there in the back, and there were bathrooms back there, and then of course there were still the bathrooms up
yeah.
front, and so it split it up. But yeah, when you get all the and I guess there was another men's bathroom somewhere on down in the convention center hall. I never
It was
ventured
about
that
half a
far.
mile or probably quarter mile literally,
Yeah,
but like I mean
that's
it
why I never.
was,
Yeah.
way on the other. I mean, this building was probably at least 2 blocks long, and
Oh yeah, I think it's actually three
yeah,
or
like
four.
it was a
Yeah,
whole other
it's
block down basically. Like
right.
it,
Yeah, that was the one, and like you said, it basically was right outside. It's right outside the main entrance to come in there, and it was a flip flop the way it usually is when you go to any kind of event where the women's restroom is lined up out the door, and then the men are just flowing in and out. It was the exact
yeah,
opposite. So yeah, that was not great. It's never fun, but especially not when like I said, you're trying to take a quick break, run up there and get back to your table, and then you're standing there waiting in
yep,
line. And anyway, so yeah, that would have been my only complaint too. But it sounds like they're already addressing it.
yeah.
So
I have faith that
I'm sure
it will
they
be
will.
addressed before next year. So
Right. Yeah, Alicia and them are always really good about that kind of stuff, the
yeah,
logistics. So they'll get it figured out. Plus, the show is, I think it's grown. I don't know. I'm not saying this with any facts, but I would say just from this is our third year of doing it, and I would say it's probably grown by at least 20 to 25% every year since we started
yeah,
doing it. So I feel like it'll be even bigger next year. So they'll have to look into more stuff like that anyway.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So yeah, very boring show as far as the looking and buying side for either one of us. But that's
Yeah.
okay. We're there to work. That's what we're
Yeah.
there
I mean,
for.
Friday.
That is the downside, I guess, to being a 2-day
Yeah.
show is you don't, like I said, on Sundays, a lot of times we're getting close to kind of winding down and stuff, and we'll take some of that time to go walk around. Of course, a lot of the cool stuff that I might want to see is already gone too,
Yeah.
but we can at least walk around, talk to, go to other people's tables, talk a little more and stuff like that versus being stuck. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That was one thing. Like Friday, basically, I didn't even venture out anywhere because we got in. We were going to try to set up on Thursday, but we ended up getting in too late, and so we had to set up Friday morning before the show. So like they let us in the door at 8. We had to set up and everything before 10 o'clock whenever the doors opened, and so like all that time before the show, I didn't even have to walk around, talk to anybody, do anything, and
Right. Same.
the only people I really
Same
saw
here.
were people that I saw like walking past the table. I'm like, hey man, how you doing? Like and the Friday I walked
As you're
around.
trying to still set the table up and not be rude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like Saturday, I got to walk around a little bit right towards the end of the show, and that was about it. So
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty much the way it went for us too. We didn't get there, so we would have probably tried to get there earlier, but we have our dogs that we
yeah,
board, and we couldn't drop them off till like 9 o'clock, and so by that kind of set our limited our time of when we could
yeah.
leave, and so by the time we did that and got there, it was like we didn't get up to the hotel room and get settled in until about 9 o'clock
Oh
that
wow.
night, and so yeah, we drove all day, got in there, got to the hotel room. Like I said, didn't even go to dinner or anything. Just basically went to the room and got ready for bed and went
Yeah.
to sleep. Got up the next morning. It was kind of funny because Les George came by Friday morning. He was saying something about rolling in at the last minute or whatever, and it was I was still setting the table up, but what he was talking about. So I had they have basically the only reasonable option when you stay at we stay at the Omni right
Yeah.
across from it, and about the only reasonable option there is to do the valet parking, and so all my stuff, the tables, we took the case full of product up to the
Yeah.
room, of course, but like the tables and that kind of stuff was in the truck, in the back of the truck. So I didn't want to haul all that stuff up to the
Yeah.
room and then back down and all those. So the next morning I had to call down, get them to bring the truck around as we were headed down to go set up. I had them bring the truck around, so we just stopped down there and grabbed all the stuff out of the truck and loaded it up on our little cart ready to roll across the street and go set up. So he saw our truck there. He thought we were just rolling in at like 8 o'clock that morning or whatever. He was like, "Yeah, way to cut it to the last minute." I was like, "No, we didn't. We weren't a whole lot better than that, but we didn't cut it quite that close."
Yeah.
But so yeah,
I've seen people cut it a lot closer. I don't know if I want to throw him under the bus, but a certain younger maker that you and I both know may have strolled in at like maybe 7:58 or so when the show opened at 8 at Blade Show Atlanta, and that was but
right.
yeah, he knows who he is.
See, that always that stresses me
Yes,
out like big time.
I'm
Like
stressed
I
until
like
like
to get down
yeah,
there.
like I'm still stressed about like before the show even opens, but once it gets started, I don't have time to worry about the table being not the way I want it anymore. I'm just like, okay, it is the way it is. Let's go.
Right.
Like, but yeah,
And it inevitably, like I'm not complaining. I do like a lot of times we'll have friends or sometimes even people just other exhibitors or stuff like that walking around checking stuff out before the show starts, and inevitably you end up getting delayed. Like somebody comes by the table and you're usually multiple
yep,
people, and you end up talking to them for a little bit and trying not to be rude while you're still trying to set the table up. And it's not quite as bad in a way in Atlanta because we always have a couple other of the crew helping us and stuff. So like I can run my mouth a little bit while they set stuff up if need
yeah,
be. But in Texas, it was just me and Amy, so we were scrambling to get everything set up, and it's just balanced. And so even when I feel like I get there in plenty of time, it never ends up being. I always have good intentions. I want to get down there early, get set up, be good, and then we can walk around a little bit. And that I think I've maybe done that once or twice,
yeah,
like ever. It's like out of all the shows we've
yeah.
done. So yeah.
it usually ends up being like
It's hectic.
Saturday morning, with stuff already, everything's set up. Just got to put the knives out real quick and,
Right,
whatever, or Sunday morning like that. But yeah,
right.
it's,
Yep, that first day is there's never enough
yeah.
time for me without getting down there at a ridiculous time
Well,
too.
but
Which you kind of hate to start the show off. You know you're going to be physically exhausted. And you're going to add an hour or extra hour or two to it at the beginning of the day. It's like,
that,
man,
and they don't let you in, they don't even let the exhibitors in until like 2 hours before the show. So, I mean, you're kind of limited on how much,
right,
like, I mean,
right,
like Thursday you can do whatever, but like,
right.
but yeah, that's,
You don't want to be hanging out in there too much on Thursday in
yeah.
Atlanta. Texas would probably be
Yeah, it
okay.
gets a little,
It is hot. Oh my
little bit.
God, it's so hot in there setting up on
Yeah.
Thursdays. It's yeah, last year. So last year, was it last year? Yeah, I made the mistake last year. I'll tell on myself of like I packed my. So Amy made me for nearly every show. She, we heat press
Yeah.
our own shirts, as you know. So like whenever we go to a show, typically Amy makes me up a fresh batch of
Yep.
t-shirts to wear to the shows because I end up ruining them in the shop, wearing them
Yep.
every day. And so she had made me some fresh shirts. She was like, "Okay, I've got you some shirts for the show." I was like, "Cool." I packed them, and in my brain, I checked that off the list. I was like, "All right, I've got my shirts covered for the show. I'm good." So we get there, and we're setting up and stuff, and getting completely hot, sweaty, nasty. To the point that we've got to go take a shower before we go anywhere. And then I realized when I get my shower, I'm like, "Huh, I wore a shirt here, and I've got my shirts to wear the 3 days of the show. I don't have another shirt to change into." So it was like, but thankfully we actually brought shirts to the show to
Yep.
sell. So obviously I snagged one of those and used that. But yeah, I was like, I totally did not plan that out. Like I just had it. She was like, "I got your shirts for the show." And so I was like, I mentally checked it off my list. I was like, "All right, I threw those in my bag. I'm good. I got my shirts for the show." Yeah, I did not plan for the whole getting sweaty and needing to change that first day. Like,
Yeah.
whoops,
I kind of,
a little too minimal
I think I did
there.
that either the first year I had a table or the second year I had a table. Basically, I was like, okay, this is the shirt I'm wearing on Thursday. This is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Cool. And like,
Right.
Thursday you get in there and, I'm helping y'all. I'm doing mine. And, it's just
Yeah.
miserable. And
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, well, I got to go to dinner later, but well, like,
Let's go see if somebody's got any shirts for sale that they're willing to go ahead and sell me
yeah,
today.
yeah. I think I did do that one time. Smith and Sons,
Yeah.
company out of Louisiana, has
Yeah.
like $5 shirts in the back a lot of the times, and I was like, yeah, hey, yeah, I'll get one of those.
There you go.
But,
That'll work. Get you out
yep,
of a bind. So yeah, I had to dip into our stash. So it's all good. That was nice to have something I could
yep,
grab at least. So definitely wasn't going to dinner in the shirt I had on because it is
yeah,
hot in there, guys. Like it's like literally dripping
yeah,
sweat. Like it's just
yeah,
miserable. But the reason for that is they have the big bay doors open for everybody to bring their stuff in, and so it's Atlanta, June Atlanta heat with all those big bay doors open, and it's actually worse because you're not outside where air is actually
yeah,
moving and stuff. It's just all that hot air coming in there and just sitting, and then thankfully they've gotten really good about putting a time limit on. Okay, at certain time those doors are getting closed and
yeah,
they're done, and we kick the air wide open, and by the next morning they've got
yeah,
it good. But that day setting up, it is, and it's unavoidable. Like I said, you have to have the doors open for people to come
yeah,
in. So it's just it is what it is. There's nothing they can do about it. But yeah, this year I will definitely be coming prepared with extra shirts and maybe some sweat
yeah.
rags, and might have to get me one of the old school '80s
Yes, yes.
fuzzy headbands or
I know.
something,
I think you should just
sleeveless shirt.
no find a red shirt, rip it up, and go full Rambo with it, and tie it up there.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
think that'll be the
Oh
best
Lord.
best bet for you there.
Yeah, that might be the way
Yeah,
to go.
but
All right, so I think we've pretty much covered. Did you have anything else about the show that stood out to you that you wanted to
uh
mention or talk about or anything?
there was one thing that's sort of on a negative note. There
Uh-oh.
were a few stolen knives in
Yeah,
at the show. Blade Bar, I know, was one. Had a Microtech.
yeah, they lost a high
Yeah,
end Microtech custom,
yeah.
I think.
I don't. I've heard someone told me there was 4 that were reported, but that was the only one that I knew of. But like they actually made an announcement, and
Right.
but yeah, that sucks.
It's so
Yeah,
frustrating, guys. You put, I mean, you hear us on here talking about all the blood, sweat, and tears that we put into this stuff, and all the other companies out there are the same way. And then for people to just come along and just, you know, do that, it's very frustrating to see that in our
yeah,
world. We had it happen
yeah,
last year. We didn't lose anything this year. Last year, I think we lost. I'm pretty sure we lost one at Blade, Atlanta. We thought we might have lost one at Utah, but I'm not 100% sure. And I know that's crazy, but like it gets so hectic, and like we ended up with a box and a knife that didn't match up, and so like we looked up and there was like an empty spot where a knife was supposed to be, and then there was a box gone from another knife or whatever. I'm pretty sure somebody just grabbed whatever, or it may have even been a team of people or whatever. Like somebody grabbed a box and grabbed the knife. They couldn't necessarily get both from the same spot or whatever.
yeah,
So, yeah, it's one thing I've going forward after this show, and it was a good reminder of seeing that happen, that I've got to do a better job of having a very detailed inventory list so that I know for sure what's in the heat of the moment. It's hard to
yeah,
tell, you can't just, it's hard to just stop and go through your inventory list and see what's what or
yeah,
whatever. But I'm going to have a system this year where we're much more, not to mention having at least one or more cameras set up as we get bigger and the booth expands and that kind of stuff. We got to have a way to keep an eye on
yeah.
stuff. So
For y'all, that's even more of a stressful thing because I mean, I'm sure you bring multiples of the same finish, and like you're bringing a
right,
lot more
right,
knives than like someone like me. Like each one is different.
yeah,
Each one I remember. Like if it's gone, I know it's gone. Like it's and I don't bring
right,
that much, so it's easier on that end. But also
yeah,
like it's still just. I feel like we're preaching to the choir here a little bit, but just kind of
yeah. I don't think anybody here, yeah.
and
But that being said, it does always help for people, even the customers walking around, to kind of be keeping an
yeah,
eye out, and because you never know, the person standing next to you might be the one slipping something in their
yeah.
pocket. So
So
the more people are watching,
yeah,
the better.
for sure. And thank you to everybody that came up to me. And I heard, you had some come up and say they appreciated the podcast and all that. And,
Yep,
I,
yep. I did
it's
want to
very,
mention
very
that for
cool.
sure.
You know, uh,
Yeah, it was kind of surprising. Like I know some people are listening. Like we look at the numbers and stuff, but then the people that actually come up, and some of them, like it would just be somebody that they would come up to the table, and I wouldn't even necessarily. I'd wonder if they had ever even heard of us.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like if they just happened to stop by the table and see us and stop and look, and then they'd be like, "Yeah, I listened to the podcast." I was
yeah.
like, "Oh, well, that's cool." Like you know,
But yeah, I got
so
to,
yeah, yes, thank you guys very much. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to our rambling and carrying
yeah,
on, and
I think I
it,
apologize,
it
but
makes it
yeah,
very cool when you see it in person. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. I was like, "Oh, I appreciate you." I'm not sure that it's that you're if you're getting good out of it or suffering from it, but we
yeah.
appreciate you.
So we'll try to keep it up for you
So
guys. But
yeah,
with
absolutely.
that, I think we're next thing moving on down the list is Blade Show Atlanta coming up fast
Yep,
already.
it will be here before
Yeah,
we know it. Yeah, once that first show of the year kicks off, it's a snowball
yeah,
downhill. Like it's one after
yeah.
the
I
other.
mean, we've got less than
So
3 months as we're sitting right here, so it's
which probably sounds like a long time to you guys. Like if you're excited and you're ready to go, 3 months seems like a long time to wait. If you're having to get stuff ready and ready to for the show on our end, it goes really
yeah.
quick.
I
So
posted a little thing on my stories yesterday about what I'm bringing, and I'm already stressing about the fact that I'm not going to be able to get all that done in 3 months, but hopefully I will be able to.
yeah, you
Yeah,
get
I've
it.
got 10 folders cut out and sort of mostly cut out and parted out and stuff, and some are further along than others, but hoping to, do some fancier stuff and some, a little bit different stuff than I normally do. Got some Damasteel.
Right.
First time using
Nice.
Damasteel, so
Hey,
excited about that.
it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. The I do have to. you want to forgive me. I got to rewind us here for just a second on talking about people coming to the show and the podcast. I don't know if he came by and talked to you or not, but I had one guy. I'm sorry that I can't remember your name. I'm sorry. But super nice guy. He came by. He decided to come to the show because we talked about it. He said, y'all convinced me to come to the show on the podcast. He caught like a $75 round trip flight from wherever he was flying to. So he flew in.
If it's the same guy I'm thinking of, it was Denver.
I think that's right. Yeah, I believe he was from Denver. So flew in, got a $75 round trip flight, and flew in that morning, came to the show for a few hours, and flew back that afternoon, and said that it was because we basically convinced him to do it on the podcast. So that was really cool. We really appreciate that. That was awesome.
I enjoyed talking with him. He came by the table a couple times, and
I hope he had a good time.
I hope he had a great time, and he seemed to be enjoying himself. So that's what it's all about.
It's hard not to tonight.
Yeah,
that's right. But so sorry about that. That slipped my mind when we were. I totally meant to mention that, and then I forgot when we got to talking. But so back to Atlanta. So go ahead. While we're thinking about it, you're talking about what you're going to bring. Go ahead and tell people what table you'll be at there. We'll go ahead and be giving people plenty of time to map everything.
Yes, I will be at table 15B. So in the tables area, it's like sort of one that's like right on the edge between like the lost all my words. Tables and booths. Thank you. Yes. But yeah, so it's right there, not deep in the sea of it, so it should be fairly easy to find.
That definitely is good when you're close to an end or something.
Yeah,
like
at Atlanta, it's very, very easy to get lost in that in the sea of tables.
And you can be looking for somebody. You can be looking out across there, and it's like you literally can't see the forest for the trees. Like you'll just look right past people. Like it's really
like that's seriously why I have a banner up on my table. It's not necessarily for people to find me. It's so I can get back to the table whenever I go to the bathroom and stuff. It's easier to actually find it and be able to do that. But
for sure.
So you're going to be at a new location this year for Blade Show Atlanta. So why don't you tell people where you'll be at? And
so we are going to be. It's going to be 2 booth spaces. We expanded into a double booth, so it's going to be spaces 424 and 426. Will be super easy to find because we're basically straight across from Microtech. We'll be facing Microtech. So if you can get Microtech, always has a huge display, big thing hanging down from the ceiling and all that. So if you can get to the Microtech booth, you'll be able to find us. So that's where we'll be. Yeah, I'm still mentioning to you a little bit before the show. Now I've got to figure out how to configure the booth now that it's going to be, kind of had it figured out the last couple of years, and now it's got to change. So I got some ideas. We're going to do it a little bit different because it starts to be, like we had this big wooden back wall. It's like the bottom of it's like tin, and then the top of it is wood and all that. But like it's already a lot, and doubling that, I'm like, no, we're getting to the point of like starting to think about needing a trailer and stuff. And I really do not want to have to take a trailer there just to deal with the parking and everything that goes along with that. So,
I couldn't imagine trying to pull a trailer through Atlanta traffic. I would probably have an aneurysm.
That and the parking stuff there at the Waverly is like you'd have to basically go park the trailer probably in the parking deck or something when you're done. Anyway, it's just I may eventually have to do that, but I'm going to avoid it as long as I can. So anyway, that's coming up as far as our big thing. I plan on the bulk of what we bring. I plan on being Dixons. So we're going to bring some Mac 2s, but we will have Dixons by then, come hell or high water.
Sweet.
So
I'll actually get to handle one there then. I was telling him right before we started the show that I forgot to even, see the Dixon while I was, I went over to their booth like twice, I think. And, both times I completely forgot to even mention it. Like,
to be fair, it was brief periods too, though. You were needing to get back, and everybody was busy. It's easy to.
I try not to take up too much of y'all's time, especially if somebody else walks up. I'm like, okay, I'll see y'all later, and we'll figure it out. But so it's, but I'll see one eventually. I might have to drive 2 hours and come see one. Yeah, that'd be fun to do another live stream.
We did, though. Yeah, we need to do that again. We do between now and Atlanta. We did have a working prototype with us at the show. A lot of you guys that came by that listened to the podcast came by and looked at it, and we got really good feedback on it. I'm even more excited now than I was about it then. The one we had at the show, it'll look a little bit different. Primarily the blade grinds, just because I just did a quick hand grind on that one. The production grind will look a little bit different. We do plan on it having a hollow grind, so there's that. That's going to be really cool. And but other than that, and finish wise and stuff, and we're going to do some different finishes and stuff. The one I had was just straight off the machine and deburred a little bit and tumbled, and it came out good enough that we're probably going to do something like that. So that kind of brighter finish, stonewash finish, and then of course we'll still do our atomic finish and some other stuff. But yeah, I am super pumped about that.
Good.
So.
I'm glad you got good feedback on it too. I forgot to even ask about that. I'm, sort of just brain dead right now.
Yeah, it was good. The only kind of negative feedback we had was from a couple of lefties, which are that's with everything we make basically. Which it does have. So it's got cutout and access for the opening hole from both sides. It's basically ambidextrous on both sides, but utilizing that thumb hole from the left hand without getting on the lock bar, especially for like a spidey flick, is really hard. But just the lefties just have to be more talented, I guess, to use.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you try hard enough, you can do it. Like I spent hours and hours trying to spidey flick a McBee until I could finally get it. So you can do it. It just
you can do that.
Takes some.
And I will say that's. Like, I've never been a big spidey flick guy. I've done it more and more over time. I've actually started using that kind of as a judge on our detents on the Mac 2s because, like, I don't spidey flick great, but I'm so used to thumb flicking stuff open that it can be a really strong detent, and I won't necessarily realize that it's as strong as it is. So I'll try spidey flicking it, and if I have a really hard time, if I can't spidey flick it, then I know the detent's probably a little too hard. So I've actually started to kind of use that as a gauge. But that being said, on the Dixon, I've already become addicted to spidey flicking it. Like, that's my preferred method of opening it now already, just from playing with it a few days.
And that's, I would say,
I think those of you that like that
are happy. That's the originals. I don't think you could spidey flick, could you? Weren't they hidden?
Yeah, I guess
by the hole or by the frame?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I did some of both. Okay. Yeah. On the originals, they did have. I typically only had the cutout for your thumb access side on one side. I did do some over the years where people would specifically ask for, like, they were a lefty or whatever. They were like, "Hey, can you do one and make it ambidextrous?" So I did do a few like that. But yeah, you're right. The primary ones were. I don't know why I was stubborn with that I know why it was because on the originals, when you had just a cutout on the one side, and then I would do like a little scoop on the inside of not the profile, but on the inside of the handle for like an area to push over with your thumb. It made unlocking it really easy. Like, it gave you a really good area for unlocking it without having to get your thumb kind of down in there as much. But it does make it to where you can't spidey flick it. So, and that's become so popular now. I honestly, at the time, like, when I designed that and was making the early ones, like, spidey flicking wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't, if I had heard of it, I didn't care at all about whether you could spidey flick it or not. So it just wasn't a thing. But anyway, so yeah, looking forward to getting those out. And guys, we're going to probably try to, we didn't mention this at the beginning, but we've actually got some bad weather coming our way. Actually, it's supposed to start hitting here basically any time now. And I think Chase is an hour or two behind us on the schedule of it. So we're afraid that it's going to mess up our internet and stuff and mess up the podcast. So we're going to try to cut it just a little bit short. So I think we had a couple of questions maybe get into, and then we're probably going to go ahead and wrap it up. Apologize, but I'd rather do that and get it done than it to cut off halfway through it and
lose all this
and not even get to finish it.
Yeah.
So what we have for questions?
We got two questions, both from the same guy, and I'm going to butcher your name, and I'm going to just go ahead and apologize here. It's Joe Mailloux. Yes, there's a Anyway, thank you, Joe,
But
for the
I
question.
feel like he would be Cajun. Sorry if you're not, and that's like, but that seems like a
Yeah, it's got that French Cajun sort of spelling. If that gives you guys an idea of how, or that French Cajun,
it's a
sort of.
cool name.
But anyway,
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
on the
First
question.
question is, what other brand have you owned that inspired you the most? And for me, I'm gonna go like not necessarily brand that I've owned, but also just kind of in general. But yeah, if you want to go ahead, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Well, okay. So yeah, I've talked a good bit before about some of the different brands that have kind of inspired me or whatever. So I won't rehash that too much. But I got to thinking about something I've actually owned. Uh, I'm trying to narrow it down. Probably what I came to, and I've mentioned this before too, and I think I've even shown it. But way back in the '90s, in the mid '90s, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was
Yeah.
before you were born. Um,
I didn't say it.
so the first, I may have had another thumb stud opener before this knife that I used, but the one I remember kind of gravitating to and carrying the most, like for the longest, and that I really got into like flicking them out with my thumb was this buck cross lock.
Yeah.
So, and I think I've shown where this is not the one I had back then. It's long gone. This one I picked up on eBay because I was getting reminiscent sentimental
Yeah.
one day. So this buck cross lock, it probably not necessarily like the look of the knife and stuff, but just the fact that I was really big on like I thought it was so cool that I could pull it out of my pocket and like fast draw it and flick it open. This one's not actually flicking open as good. It needs a little love, but it's a used one. But yeah, the fact that I could pull it out of my pocket and flick it open so fast, like at that time, at the age I was at, like I thought that was just super
Yeah.
cool. Still think it's cool, but I don't walk around trying to fast draw as much as I used to. But yeah, I was like I thought I was a knife slinger or something. I guess back in the day.
Yeah. This
So
man was dangerous.
yeah, that had, not the safest thing. So that probably has had more influence on the way I build knives because you guys all know that basically they're made to be. We make ours with the D10 and just the ergonomics of it to be flicked out like that, and so that probably has had the biggest impact on me of anything I can think of as far as the way we build our knives. So I'd go with that.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I like that. For me, uh, I didn't have as canned of an answer or as solid of an answer where I like immediately knew, but because it's so difficult to kind of parse out like what I've seen a bunch of stuff from makers like and designers that I've never even held or never even touched or never obviously never owned, but like those have inspired me. But also like in terms of actually how I build knives, that's very heavily influenced from you, obviously, having learned in your shop
Yeah.
and all that, and like how I set detents and how I do stuff like that, which early on a lot of the detents I set were a little even too strong, but I would say. But yeah, it's
We need to tell that story.
I mean, you told me not to shake it out, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, we're that far into it. It's not a long story. So guys, so when we started making, Chase, when he started learning to set the detent stuff on the Mac too, so my instruction was, I told him how to adjust it and stuff, and I was like, and make it so that like when you shake the knife like that, the blade can't come
Yeah.
out. Well, then some time passed, and I will admit that I'm very bad about telling somebody something like that or showing them, and then like basically just thinking in my head, okay, they know what I'm saying, they've got it, and like expecting them to just do it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so way more than I should. Like I should be going back and checking a little more often and making sure, especially considering that I'm imagine my communication is not nearly as good as I think it is most
I
of the
tend
time.
to take stuff
Now
too
I'm
literal
explaining
as
stuff.
well. You tell me something and
Yeah.
I do that like what you told me. There's no wiggle
Yeah.
room. Like
Yeah. So I don't remember, I guess we got to inspecting some or whatever. Like, you got some done or whatever. And I went to open them and I was like, holy crap. Like, I can't even open this thing. And he was like, well, you said to not be able to shake it out. And I was like, and he grabbed the knife and he was like, I'm talking about like super, super ninja snapping it like super hard. I was like, oh, well, yeah, no wonder. Like if you can't snap it out like as hard as you're snapping it, then like nobody's gonna ever be able to open it. So I had to be like, okay, with a normal amount of kind of shaking pressure, not a snap like that. And to be fair, he's not the only. There've been at least actually pretty much everybody that has learned to set detents since then, I think has gone through that same evolution.
Okay, good.
Like it's yeah, literally everybody that I can think of that I've shown to do it has basically had to go. They'll start off doing it good, but then they get more and more of like a snap, like almost get obsessed with not being able to let it out and like snapping it because you're like, I don't want it to be too. He said not to let it come out, so yeah, that's now I get there quicker with teaching people or whatever. Like, okay, no, you can't snap it. It's just got to be a reasonable shake. But anyway, so yeah, that's that story. That's definitely on me more than him of not doing a better job of explaining it. But yeah, that was a pretty funny. So from what you said, honestly, you could almost claim, even though you never owned it, you could almost claim the butt cross lock as having an influence.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, yeah, because I mean, like where I try to place thumb studs, I try to put them, as like close back up to the handle as possible, and try to, keep everything tight. And I try to, me and you both try to keep the blade to handle ratio really tight, and try to, cram as much in as we can possibly get in there. And like
that, I did not get from this knife.
Yeah.
Where's the camera? As you can see, this thing is like now that I design stuff, and I go back and when I got this knife in the mail from eBay, I was like, holy crap, I didn't remember the handle being that much longer than the blade. And like it's skinnier, like the handle is huge compared to the blade. And now that bugs the crap out of me. So I'm like, I probably wouldn't even buy that knife.
Yeah.
As eye for design has evolved or whatever.
There's definitely some knives that I've got, like I've always wanted them, and like, then I finally find a good deal on it or whatever and get one, and I'm like, Jesus, it's like half an inch of empty handle in here. What are we doing? Like, fill that thing up. But
yeah, it skews your perspective.
Yeah, sure. That is definitely one thing that I try to abide by, and we all have our different set of rules for design and stuff. But yeah, as far as what brand, I mean, I never was super brand loyal, but I don't know. I don't really have a great answer. There's just some of my inspiration, I guess, in a nutshell. Sorry, Joe.
But, yeah, I go. That's all right. It's a reasonable answer.
And it also, like, before I started working for you and after I started working for you, I feel like my taste and things completely changed, because I don't think you can build knives for somebody else and work that closely with somebody else and not be affected by it in some way, or at least I couldn't. But
I would say that's probably true. Yeah, it's just you just end up getting influenced. You just get used to doing it a certain way or the way it's supposed to look, and then even if you're doing it to the way that I think it's supposed, you were building them to the specs that I wanted it built to. But then after a while, when you get used to doing that, that just starts to feel right to you.
Yeah,
I mean?
For sure.
Even if you might not have gone that route yourself in the beginning, but yeah.
All right.
So that's cool.
So the other question that,
all right, you said you had another one.
Yeah, Joe also asked what model do you enjoy building the most? And so for me, it'd have to be a fixed blade. So I don't enjoy any of the folders at this point. They're all just miserable fights to the end, and I hope they die. But I would say probably that's a good question. Probably my Esker M, sort of clip point harpoon sort of thing. I like I like the size of it. I like how they turn out. I've kind of got used to how the grind flows on them, and doing them is a lot simpler than it used to be, as far as like it seems to flow a lot better because I've made a bunch of them. But that'd probably be my favorite model.
Cool. Good choice.
I should have brought one in here with me, but prepared. But
yeah, it's all good. Gives them a reason to go look at your website.
What about you?
So that would be hard for me, especially because we've basically, you know, if I go back to
Yeah.
custom days, maybe I guess it'd be different. But that's been quite a while now. So like, I mean, we essentially build one model, variations of it or whatever. But out of the Mac twos, I'd say probably the Tantos are probably my
Yeah.
favorite. They, uh, I just really like the Tanto blades and stuff. I like the way they look when they come out and stuff. That's probably my favorite. But right now, I would probably say the
Yeah.
Dixon. I mean, partially because it's new, but also I think some of the nostalgia and that I've talked about when I was talking about it before how the Mac 2 was I designed strictly for production stuff. It wasn't ever a custom
Yeah.
design. This being a tweaked custom design that I bring into production. And actually, I got to think about it. I think it was actually my second
Yeah.
design, folder design
Yeah. I think
ever.
you mentioned that on
Um,
here.
so yeah, yeah. So that a lot of nostalgia there. Long time ago when I actually first designed it, so like there was a lot of nostalgia there. So I'd say right now that we're starting to build it, I would say the Dixon. So
I think that's, I'm kind of speaking for you here, but like when you were making customs, it always seemed like the Dixons, it seemed like you enjoyed them more than like, say the Sodbusters or the Tangents or, the Bees.
yeah,
Cause
it was kind of always almost like my flagship in
yeah,
a
but I
way.
think,
The
back to the point of it being the second, one of the second early, folder designs, like you had been making it for a while by the time I came around. So like, you know,
right,
supposedly it's supposed to get easier
probably
as you
was
keep
because the
going. I seem to be having the opposite problem, but I'm also trying to,
yeah yeah
learn new skills as I'm, running down the highway, and that's always fun.
Yeah, yeah, believe me. Yeah, and I think part of it plays into what we were talking about a minute ago about the design stuff and how it changes too. Because when I originally made, to be honest, the FMUC was easier to make in a lot of ways, which was my first design, big, really
Yeah,
chunky knife. It was a lot of work as far as like doing the contour on the handles and stuff. There was a lot of material to remove, so it was a lot
yeah,
of work. But as far as the action and all that, like the big knife was always easier to get the
yeah,
action good on. But that being my first design, like we said, my design eye and theory kind of evolved, and it does not have a great blade to handle ratio. And so once I kind of once my design theory evolved, then I kind of didn't like making that as much because it always
yeah,
bugged me. I was always like the blade just looks too short. Like I don't like that anymore. I still would make them, but people wanted them, but it always bugged me. So that I don't think even though it was my first design, I don't think I have quite as much love for it as I do for the Dixon. The Dixon was the first one where I felt like I kind of, you know, and for sure the first ones did not look as good as the
I
ones
mean,
now. I'm talking about not even just like the skill of actually doing the stuff. I'm talking about just
yeah,
the literal
yeah.
design.
That's
They
another thing.
did
Like,
not look everything didn't flow as
yeah,
good.
the
Yeah,
designs for custom guys kind of evolve in real time versus like,
yeah,
Spyderco is going to make a PM2 until they decide like, okay, we need to make some revisions, and then all of it will change to that particular design. That custom guys don't really,
right.
handmade guys.
From one night to
Yeah,
the
like
next,
I
yeah, you
mean,
can like,
it
oh, I didn't like the way this little curve looked right here,
gonna
so I'm
fix it.
going to
Yeah,
make it deeper or shallower or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
So,
move this a little bit.
but for you guys who are maybe not familiar with some of Jonathan's older work and stuff like that, I would recommend uh going back on like Arizona Custom Knives and going to his maker page and like going back to, I think he's got like 30 something pages now, but uh yeah,
Oh wow,
well,
been on there.
the first 5 or 6 are like mostly just Mac 2s these days, but you know
Yeah,
um you'll eventually get back to some of the handmade stuff and you can see some of the stuff he used to make. And
yeah,
but like, yeah, I think you only made one F muck that I know of, maybe two, in the time that I was working with you. So, but
yeah. It wasn't as many, and like partly because they weren't ever quite as popular as and I don't know. Some of that may have been too on me that I got to where I preferred the Dixon and some of the other models
yeah,
better that had the better handle blade ratio and stuff, and so I kind of didn't push the F muck as much, and so back then it was kind of more of like, I mean, if you made, you know, it wasn't just I kind of picked what I made and I made it and I put it out there and I showed it or whatever. So whatever I was making the most was kind of getting the most promotion.
Yeah.
So since I like to make
Yeah.
things, and
that definitely comes
some
out
other
as
model.
far as like, I think if you don't like making stuff, it definitely doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, you don't push it as hard. You're not making as many of them, so they're not getting as much exposure and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, so that.
But yeah, that's
Okay. Well, I guess
that's the questions for today.
answered the question.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second, I think.
No, I was basically saying
Okay,
the same
cool.
thing.
One bit of housekeeping that I did want to mention. It was brought to my attention. The email for the show is Knife Freak Show, not Knife Freaks Show. So there's only one S in there. Just wanted to clarify so you guys can get your emails in and, get us questions and stuff like that. But yeah, so knifefreakshow@gmail.com with only one S is the email for the show. So
Yep, and please send some questions and stuff, guys. Questions or even just like even if it's not a full on question, like just topics that you'd like to see us talk about and stuff, because we usually end up not having a problem running our mouth for an hour or so, but it sometimes I feel like I'm rambling a whole lot. So if hearing what you guys want to hear us talk about or touch on definitely helps us to know, give us a little guidance on what to do and us not having to just come up with a topic every week. Sometimes we've got stuff that we really want to talk about. Sometimes we just kind of are grasping at straws and not sure what to talk about. So please do that. And also please help us out. Like we said, we really appreciate all of you coming up to the show and stuff. Y'all please continue to help us out by spreading the word about the show. Send it to your friends. Like it and share it and all that good stuff and subscribe. We really appreciate you guys doing that. It helps us out a lot. So, and also let's see, they pretty much I think know where to find both of us at this point by now. So,
yeah. I mean, but look us up on Instagram, look us up on Facebook, Boatright Blade Works, McNees Knives. You're the other way. Yeah. Anyway.
yeah.
But
yeah, I looked. The wind was rattling the door a minute ago, and I looked. Like when I looked this way, it looks like I'm looking at you, but I was actually looking to see how bad the wind was getting out there. It was like,
yeah.
If y'all thought I was shooting a look, I wasn't. I was looking at the wind to see if I needed to run for the house.
Yeah. So we'll let you get out of here. Y'all stay safe up there, and everybody else in the southeast, and keep an eye on this weather and be safe out there. And we will see y'all next week. What? Sorry.
Yep. See you on the other side.
And let your freak flag fly.